Once you've created your VCarve part, the easiest way to do simple cutouts is through a two-dimensional profile cut. This is how we do that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the import right under file operations, still on the design side. And this allows us to pick certain uh, exports that we've already done. So I am going to go up to my OneDrive home folder and into a particular class folder where I've got stuff stored. And I am going to pick this one here and open it up. When I do that, it's automatically going to come in centered because, again, the main point of the drawing was centered, and I set it up so that the 0 point was centered. So the nice part is when I click off, I've now got various profiles in. Now, as we see, all of the parts of this are actually small line segments and curves. So we actually, before we move into the machine setup side, we need to make sure we join all of these. So the cool part is we can do this all at once. So if I drag a box and select everything, or if I had left everything selected, over here under Edit Objects, this box that's in the lower left corner of that menu is called Join. When I click that, it tells me that it's selecting 32 open vectors. Think of vectors as lines and curves, line segments. Okay. The tolerance should be fine because, again, we're getting these from somewhere else. And after joining, I would have 3 closed vectors, which would be the outer shape, this inner box, and this pocket here. Now, once I've done that, I can go ahead and click Join. And now when I select stuff, I select this outer profile, and now the whole profile is selected. And that's exactly what I want before I move on. Now, VCarve works in this way. So we work with our design. We either create stuff, we adjust stuff. In our case, we import stuff and make sure that things are joined like we need it to be. Then I can click this button over here to switch to the toolpath commands. And now over here on the right, I've got my various toolpath commands. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click the outside profile. And at that point, I'm going to go ahead and click the Profile Toolpath, which is the first tool, top left. When I click this, the first thing I have to double check is that my start depth is at 0 and the cut depth is the thickness of my material. In this case, I'm using a 3/4 inch piece of pine. Now, I can also select my tool. Now, as I said in my setup videos, you do want to make sure that you can click Edit and look at it and make sure it's in the correct tool number. Now, this is incorrect. The 1/4 inch end mill is in spot number 2. So we're going to make sure we change that and go ahead and click OK. Now, most of the setup stuff is good. However, if I don't add tabs to the toolpath, when it goes to cut this center section will now be free. So if I was later going to machine this pocket or machine this cut, all right, the outer piece would be separated from the inner piece. And especially since the outer piece is probably what is secured to the table, this is going to be bouncing around inside. So that's really a problem. So we want to click the button here to say Add Tabs to Toolpath. You've got some thickness settings here that you can mess with, but these 1/2 inch by 1/8 inch tabs have worked fine for us. So we're going to click Edit Tabs, and this is where we can place our tabs. Now in this case, I'm going to go ahead and put them in the 4 corners. I usually like to use 4 evenly spaced tabs, and the other thing I'll tell you is if you can, put it towards put it along a straight edge. Excuse me. Because when we do that, we can use the bandsaw to cut through the tab, and when it comes off, it's then real easy to take to a sander and sand it so that you don't have the tab still sticking out to make that tab totally go away. So in this case, I'm going to do it like this because I'm probably going to use a screw or a clamp in one of these corners to hold it down. So my tab is closest to my secured point. Makes a lot of sense. Once you've added those little T-squares, you can go ahead and click Close. As you scroll to the bottom of this, we don't need to add anything else. If you want to name it, you can name it here. So I could do outer profile or something like that. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as profile 1 because I'm not doing that many different steps for this part. I'm going to click calculate, and it switches to look like wood because that's what my material was already set as. And then I see kind of blue lines where the tool path would go. So the red line shows where the tool would just move from the 0 point out. And then the blue lines show where it's actually cutting. Now I can either click preview selected path or just click the play button, or I can preview all tool paths. But when you do that, it just kind of runs real quick, and you can see I've got the little tabs securing my place so that this doesn't move around. Once I've done that, I can go ahead and close that, and that will stay there. Now, if I don't like the look of the actual wood piece, I've got my view part right here. So I can switch back to the 2D view, which some people prefer. Just as a quick side note, this was a pocket, so I'm going to not do anything with that in this video because pockets are in a different video. But I'll go ahead and click the inside profile to switch to that, and now I can do another profile cut. Now, one of the things to pay attention to, and I probably should have shown it to you on the other one. Again, I'm going to double check my 0.75. I'm going to click edit, make sure it's in the correct tool path. Yep, tool number 2, that's right. And lastly, the machine vectors, okay? Right now, as you can see by this, it is cutting outside or on the right side of this profile. So again, since mine are different things, right, that's exactly what I wanted here. We want the cutter, okay, the cutter, this little beige circle here, in the waste material, not into my part. Okay. Now, if I do this, what I want is I actually want that to be the outer edge of my cut. So I don't want it to cut on the outside. Otherwise, this pocket's going to be way too big. So at this point, I'm going to switch to in. Okay. So as you can see, it's going to cut inside of that. So again, you always want the tool in the waste material. Okay. And in this case, the waste material is to the inside. So that is something you want to check and make sure that you are correct on. Climb cuts are just fine. Again, we'll add tabs. And I'm going to click edit tabs. And I'm going to go ahead and put these kind of offset because the there's no way in here with a bandsaw from the inside, so I'm probably going to have to use a handsaw or something like that. And if I have this be a little taller, I've got more room to get that saw in there and actually have it work. And you can always, if this doesn't work right for you, you can always come back and change these tabs. So I'm going to go ahead and click close. I've done everything I need to do. Called profile 2. I'm just going to have 2 profiles so I can keep those in order. And I'm going to go ahead and click calculate. So it's going to figure out what it needs to do, and I can preview that selected path, okay? And I'm just making sure that on here, this is not going into my corner. You'll see since it's cutting to the inside, those don't really round, okay? It just goes around on the inside. I'll be able to put a handsaw into this gap and saw through those and then use a tool or a file or something to sand those down. So that'll work just fine, okay? Just a little side note on this. If you redo a profile, or if you realize, oh, I put that to the outside, you go fix it, you'll still see the old one on here. So sometimes you might need to do reset preview to make this go away, and then you can say preview all toolpaths, and it'll do what it shows right here. And you saw it went really quick, but it cut the outside first, then the inside last. Okay, and I set it up that way because if you remember, we use there's a hole drilled in our piece for this particular project, so we put that in the center. Okay, and then this is usually screwed down 2 or 3 places, maybe 4. So I would just prefer there to be less stress on these tabs while it's cutting the outside. So that's why I do it that way. And just to be clear, if you wanted to change the order in which they go, you can highlight a path and you can change the order and move them, okay? For example, if I was to add the pocket back in, I would actually move the pocket to the top because that's actually the part that you should do first. All right, with that, you are ready to work on your pockets, or if you need to, there's going to be a different video that shows you what to do once all your tool paths are created and your part is ready to be sent to the machine.